This episode is sponsored by Escape Pain and Faster Way to Fat Loss certified coach Claudia Montanari. Increase energy, gain lean muscle, improve sleep, decrease inflammation, and change your body with the 6-week program. It starts on January 11th and includes 12 sessions in the Whole Body Light Pod, meal guides and grocery lists, targeted workouts, and one-on-one accountability sessions. Plus, incorporate carb cycling, intermittent fasting, and tracking macros to fuel your body. Spots are limited, so go to escapepain.com and register today. That's XSCAPE pain.com.
Welcome to Hustle and Pro Season 2, talking sports in Frisco from youth to pro. Now here's your host, Kelly Walker.
Welcome to today's episode of Hustle and Pro. We have Josh Dill as our guest today. If you don't know him by name, I promise you know some of the work that he's done, because if you've been to or seen or heard of any sporting events in Frisco, Texas, Josh was probably involved in it. So welcome to Hustle and Pro, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Let's start with a couple of icebreakers to get to know you a little better. Who's your favorite athlete?
Well, really, Kobe Bryant was my favorite athlete. I mean, I was my screen name on AOL back in the day was Kobe Bryant, KB8 Too Cool.
Oh wow,
which is really embarrassing, but yeah, I was a Kobe fan from the very beginning.
That's awesome. What's your favorite sports movie? We just did an episode discussing this for a while, so I'm curious. What is your favorite?
Oh man, I love sports movies. The one that rings the most true for me, I guess, is Slapshot. So I started working in minor league hockey, and it was just kind of that. It reminds me of that time where a franchise was really struggling to survive. So it's just that old school hockey movie. But man, I watch a lot of sports movies, but that one's probably the one that hits closest to home.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know that one. I mean, I know the movie, but I can't think of watching it myself. But it wasn't on our top list discussion, so I'll have to add that to our list.
Yeah, it's probably not as mainstream, and for somebody in Texas, I mean, hockey wasn't big back whenever Slapshot came out, but just the guy trying to sell the skates and selling everything he can to try to make it through the season. That was my first year in minor league hockey, so that it just
you felt that.
I felt it really deep.
Yeah, minor league anything, you feel those pains of trying to get through a season. So this might be a tough question, but what's your favorite sport?
Oof.
And sometimes we break this down, what's your favorite sport for you, yourself to play or do, versus what's your favorite to watch if you're watching something on TV?
Sure. I mean, my favorite sport to watch is probably hockey, which is funny because I never played it. I skated the other day, and it hurt pretty bad. I mean, I was a better basketball player in high school. I was all district in my senior year, which didn't really mean much because I was at a small school. But that was just the game of basketball is my favorite X's and O's type thing.
All right, so basketball in high school and hockey. What else did you do? What's your sports snapshot look like when you go back and see what all the things you did?
Yeah, I mean, I played a bunch of different sports. The only thing I really didn't play was baseball a whole lot. I played some t-ball and stuff, but I played little dribblers, basketball, and I was a power tumbler, a tumbling and trampoline person for 10 years, which looking at me now, you probably wouldn't think that.
Okay, that's fascinating to me. Okay, so I grew up a gymnast, so power tumbling and what was the other thing you called it?
TNT, tumbling and trampoline.
Tumbling and trampoline. Okay. So in my world, there wasn't those spin-off pieces and focuses. It was just you were a gymnast or you weren't, right?
Sure.
And then, in your backyard, you were good at trampoline or you were good at tumbling when I got older and moved into the cheer world a little more. So then, where are you from, first of all?
I grew up out in West Texas.
Okay.
My parents have a farm just south of Brownfield, which is about an hour, 45 minutes south of Lubbock.
Yeah,
so.
I'm a Red Raider, so I know Brownfield. So then how the heck did somebody growing up there, how'd you get into power tumbling and trampoline?
Well, my tumbling coach was from Levelland, and so she kind of had she traveled around to all the towns that surrounded Lubbock, which is why it was the hub city, right?
Yeah.
And so she would come to Brownfield, and a bunch of my cousins and stuff were involved in this, and so my mom put me in, I think I was 2 when I first started, and it kind of progressed, and I kept getting a little bit better and better at it. So yeah, that's it's weird when people say, like, I say I'm a gymnast a lot of times, but it was more T&T. So working with gymnastics, obviously they do split that up very heavily now.
So when she puts you in that young, does she put you in a tumbling class or gymnastics?
It's tumbling, yeah.
So you didn't so you didn't do event-based gymnastics?
No, I did long skinny mat, tumbling,
tracks and stuff.
And then I did trampoline, and then we did double mini trampoline as well.
Wait, what? What's that?
So it's like an apparatus. It's a mini trampoline. You jump, you do a trick, you jump on the next side, and then you jump off of it. So it's kind of like a vault, but it's a little mini trampoline. So I did that until I started playing junior high football. I did that, and honestly, it's funny. I think T&T helped me be a better athlete because I knew how to fall. Yeah. I knew, I didn't get hurt near as much. I got hurt tumbling and stuff, but I felt like on the football field, I controlled my body a little bit better because of that background.
Probably. And your core, and there's just so many different things you developed as a tumbling or a trampolinist that like you never probably would have otherwise. That's so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you said you quit, like, what did you say, middle school?
Yeah, about seventh grade.
Like, what are the things I'm sure the people listening to this aren't as detailed and interested in specifically, but like, what kind of tricks are you doing at that age? When you're as good as you are, what were you doing?
I mean, one of the biggest last tricks that I landed, I think I landed a full, and it was just a regular, backflip with a full twist. Yeah. And that was a big accomplishment. I mean, I was doing a lot of, flip-flops, back handsprings, whatever. I did, some stuff, some double backs and stuff on the trampoline, but I had to kind of choose. Do I want to go into more traditional stick and ball sports? Or do I want to stick with this? And I was having to drive an hour each way to do the tumbling and trampoline, and I really wanted to play football, even though it was 6-man football, so it was a little different. But, we kind of changed path there. Because
tumbling would have put you on the track to be a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Like, what else are you going to do with your schools with those skills, except if you want to do something with schools, except cheer?
Yeah. My school did not have male cheerleaders. We were a really tiny school. I had 11 kids in my graduating class.
Wow.
So we played 6-man football. So if you didn't play football, we didn't have a band. I got to play every sport that we had.
Sure.
But we didn't have baseball because we didn't have enough kids. Yeah.
Can't field the team. Wow. That's fascinating. Yeah, that's a small, there's some small towns out there that build some 6-man teams. That's so cool, though. So where'd you go after high school?
So I went to school at Texas Tech.
Okay, you did.
Yeah, and I got a PR degree there, and I played some intramural stuff, and I felt like I was a better intramural player than I was a high school player. But, of course, I was a 6'2" white guy that couldn't play college basketball. I always kind of wanted to, but I got to live out a little bit of that in the intramural world.
Yeah, dominating in some intramural basketball. I played intramurals at Tech also. A little bit of basketball myself and some outdoor soccer and indoor soccer and softball and whatever the girl football, powder putt, whatever they call it. When were you at Tech?
Let's see, I was there 2002 to 2006.
We just missed each other.
Yeah.
I got out of there and just before you got there, yeah. I got there in 97.
Nice.
All right, so we just wrapped up a really strange sports year, right?
To say the least,
yeah. And so, isn't it crazy to think that the Winter Classic was 2020 or 2020? Like, it was the first day of 2020, and it was like a glorious day for DFW, sporting events, right? It was like the perfect thing.
It's funny. Me and my wife just had our anniversary last month, and she bought me a panoramic of the Winter Classic because we went because we were both Stars fans.
Oh, you were there, yeah.
And we were joking around that day, going, man, if we're going to big events like this for all of 2020, the joke being that, whatever you do on the first day of the year is what you're doing all year.
It's going to be awesome.
This is going to be an incredible year. I work in sports. Like, this is going to be awesome. And it was literally couldn't have been anything further from the truth.
Then it all comes to a screeching halt, probably during one of your events. So Conference USA was happening at the Star, like mid-tournament. Everything gets shut down. I mean, I know things got shut down all over the world and not poor Frisco, whatever, but for our world, it was during, an event here that we brought to the city. And so everything kind of stopped.
Yeah.
So if sounds like you and your wife are kind of like me and my husband, where we do a lot of sports related things. That's our spare time. That is what takes up our social life.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it even harder when something like this happens and you all of a sudden we have no FC Dallas games to go sit at. We have no Rough Riders to go sit at and enjoy and take our kids to and all the things, the Ranger, all of our traditions.
Yep.
So it was hard, right? So
It was.
what did you guys feel that and what did you guys do?
Yeah, we obviously felt it quite a bit. I mean, I was at home worrying about events that we were supposed to be having, and it was a surreal moment in Conference USA whenever we were sitting in the room at the Star with the whole conference staff and a bunch of the ADs and deciding, I remember that day I drove to the gym and got a text that the NCAA tournament was being, postponed. And then by the time I left the gym, I had a text from Conference USA commissioner saying, "Hey, we need you up here right now." And I just left the venue to go work out, and then I came back and we were like, so I'm sitting there in my workout clothes and she's like, "I don't think we can continue with this tournament." And so she's on the phone. She's getting calls from Mark Emmert, from the NCAA president, and we're sitting there, and it all just ground to a halt. So it was surreal. My busy slate of events that I had really in March and April, none of them went off. So we spent a lot more time at home, and then it just seems like from then on we've been in this waiting period. Initially, it was like, it's going to be 4 to 8 weeks. And the 8 weeks never ended. Mm-hmm. And we just, we keep making plans, and it seems like every couple of days we throw that plan away and we go with something else.
Yeah, like we'll see if these tickets hold or we'll see if this happens. So one of the things we did, besides getting outside when it was just our little life in our house, thankfully we live in a place like Frisco where we could get outside and there's parks. We have baseball fields in walking distance to our house, lots of trails and bikes, so where we could still, as a small family of 4, play sports. But one of the things we did was watch a lot of sports-related stuff on Netflix or on TV. Did you guys get into that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like thank goodness The Last Dance came on when it did, right? Because I needed those 10 weeks or 10 episodes of Michael Jordan.
Yeah, you needed that something to look forward to. It was like that must-watch TV, and it was kind of fun to realize that like so many people were watching it with you. That's what I think sports is great, is it's camaraderie. It's like, I'm doing this, but just like the Winter Classic, I'm doing this with 80,000 other people.
Yeah.
And to hear 80,000 people yell stars in the middle of the national anthem,
Yes.
It's like bone-chilling kind of stuff.
Love it.
And that's what, the Last Dance kind of gave us a taste of that. Like, I remember we had something to talk about in the office, that week. And, I talked to Chuck about, he actually used to work out around Michael Jordan. Chuck works with me. And so he had some insight, and he was talking about, being in basketball during those days. And, so it was fun to kind of, again, use sports as that thing to kind of come around and be a part of, but it still wasn't live events.
Still not the same, but it's amazing how we consumed it anyways. Like, people thought it was crazy. I remember the first morning, like, EPL soccer came on and my husband turns on to watch, and it's just so weird that there's no fans. But then, like, now I like it because I prefer no crowd noise. Like when the FC Dallas playoff game the other night was on, I'm like, oh, they have the fake crowd noise piped in. It's too fake. Yep. I can't hear the coach and the players talk. I want to hear the game. So it's amazing how it has changed some of our watching preferences.
I think the more hardcore sports fan is kind of like that. Like I like watching basketball, and you can hear the players talking to each other. Yeah. You hear them setting things up, and you hear the coaches interacting. I think the more casual sports fan, it's almost like a laugh track on a comedy show or something. It's like, tell me when I should cheer, or when I should get excited, or even if I'm just going to turn back and look at the TV because it got louder.
Right.
But if you're a really sports fan, I get it. Like it's become somewhat normal to not see the crowds, which I hate because working in sports tourism, we need crowds.
Yeah, we do, and I'm the first one to want to be there too. So, did you watch Lance?
I didn't. I've never been a big cycling person, but
it's good enough anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm big enough to know that I just watch Tour de France every time it comes on TV, or not even. I mean, who watches the whole thing?
That's a lot.
But like, the newsworthy stuff, and see who's leading whatever leg. But it was good.
Oh yeah.
I think it's good, and also just because he's a Texas, like, it's just close to home, so I thought it was interesting. I watched some Aaron Hernandez stuff, that was hard to watch. So did you get into the cheer phenomenon?
Yes. Yeah. So I've it was funny watching that show with my gymnastics background. Obviously, a lot of that made sense, and And then a lot of those guys were competing. Whenever I used to work at the Fort Worth Sports Commission, and we hosted a big ACA event there in Fort Worth. And so it was funny. I was like, oh, that's in the convention center. There were times whenever they would show just little clips of them being at a competitive event.
Oh, you recognize footage.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I've always been an appreciator of cheer, even though I never did it, because it's like it combines gymnastics. It's very athletic. It's but it's crazy to see these little girls, and I say little girls, they're young women, but their bodies are breaking down because they're competing harder than a lot of contact sports.
Oh yeah, it's intense. It's a lot more intense than people realize.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the breaking down comes from what the tumbling side of it. I mean, tumblers have lots of cricks and cracks that most people don't realize that really affect your body long term.
Oh yeah, I still can't stand up without my knees and ankles. I have terrible knees and ankles, and it's all from tumbling.
Same. But man, I'm a sucker for some Texas sports documentary. I also got into Athlete A, part of because when I was growing up, I was fascinated with the Crowleys and just anything gymnastics. I think when I was asked on this podcast who my favorite athlete is, my answer is gymnastics. Like, it's what I think back when I think of like a lifetime of favorite people to watch.
Sure.
I like watching gymnasts, but Athlete A was a big one for me.
That was a hard one for me to watch because I knew a lot of the people in that situation. The president of USA Gymnastics at the time, Steve Penny, and I were, I'd gone to dinners with him. I literally, a couple of years before all of this went down, I had breakfast with Steve, Bella Caroli, Ron Gallimore. I was friendly with those guys. I went to events and we saw them. We hosted a lot of gymnastics in Fort Worth, and we still do over here. So it was really hard for me because I see both sides of what went down, and taking care of kids is the most important thing, and that's where they messed up. Mm-hmm. But I also know the business of sports is not always just a clear-cut, easy thing to do. And so, it makes you wonder, everyone says, through hindsight, yeah, that was so wrong.
Yeah, and they should have done this right then. Yeah,
and it's easy to see what went wrong in a car accident, but in the moment, people make split-second decisions, and they're not always right. But, Athlete A was one that I definitely consumed, and it was... but it was a little odd to watch.
It was, I bet, for you, especially knowing those names and faces. Yeah, it was odd to watch for me, just thinking back, man, that was so much of my childhood, and I never experienced anything like those girls did. Everything I can think of was positive about my gymnastics life. But man, it was just powerful. That documentary was super, super important and powerful. And I'm glad they put it out there because the parent side of me watches it thinking, wow, like watching how some of the parents had to really fight for their children's well-being.
Yep.
I trust coaches so much. I put a lot of trust in what I tell my kids all the time. Like, well, if that's what your coach said, like, that's probably the right thing.
Exactly.
Which you're supposed to do, and you want to support your coaches and defend your coaches too. But it also kind of like made me go, well, you need to, what does your gut say? If your kid is saying this, listen and don't just sweep every complaint under the rug. Like, pay more attention. So.
Sure. Yeah. It's definitely a balancing act.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. It's, I'm the same way. I don't want to coach the coaches, but then at some point you got to go, okay, if this doesn't seem right, my gut's telling me to fight for it. And that's what some of those parents did. And thankfully they did, because they probably helped save a lot of other kids from going through that.
Exactly. Like when your parents are saying, like, what's going on with our case? Oh, they're not getting any, it's like crickets. Well, something's wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so to save other people from going through it, like say something. Okay. Did you get into the F1 series?
I didn't know. I hear a lot about it, and it's kind of I'm kind of excited because all this content is still available.
Yeah.
And so I've got like a playlist whenever I can find time. With not having an FCS championship this year, maybe I'll have an extra weekend where I can sit down and consume some of that stuff.
Yeah, Drive to Survive.
I've heard people that are like, now I watch Formula One all the time because I watch that show.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far for me. My husband puts it on now because of the show. But it's just, again, it makes you appreciate a sport you otherwise wouldn't have really known the nuances of.
Yep.
It's a good one to watch.
Well, and that's the reason I work in sports is, I like to watch people reach their pinnacle. That's what's so great about sports is there's this thrill of victory, there's this agony of defeat, but it takes, a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work to get to this. And that's kind of what, and we'll talk about this another time, but like even working events, it's the same kind of theory. Like I prep for events, we work hard for several months and then we execute an event and you sit there and you go, okay, that's awesome. Like, so it's still competing in a way.
Yeah.
And
the journey of seeing the journey to see what, a 2-hour event, knowing the journey behind it. And like you said, the prep that goes into it. And that's part of what the Drive to Survive is. I mean, you see footage of them all sitting in a room, 20 guys with headphones on watching footage, or I don't know what they're watching. And then just listening to the dynamics between all the people that it takes to put this one guy or a couple of guys on a team in a car and race is really amazing. So yeah, watch that one if you get a chance. So then there's a funny one I want to ask you about. Have you gotten into Ted Lasso?
So I've watched a couple of episodes. My wife is not a big fan, and we have young children, so we kind of have to figure out what we're doing with our TV time, and that's not her favorite. So
there's some language in there. Sure.
I mean, she just it's kind of goofy to her. It's a goofy show, but I really like Jason Sudeikis a lot. Yeah, so my plan is to watch that. Whenever I get back to traveling and doing things for normal work, that'll be something I'll probably watch on the road.
Yeah. That's a good road trip when your wife's not around, so you don't have to bother her with it. Yeah, it's so funny to me. It just cracks me up.
I love anything that shows the business behind sports. Not, and there's a lot of that in there. And
because it's not about the soccer. No. I mean, the soccer on the field is funny. It's comical. It's not real. You can tell that the soccer footage is stupid.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not what it's about. It's the relationship with the owner and just the dynamics of, bringing this goofball football coach in to this team in London. I just thought it was hilarious. So that's something I got into. So then a lot of people, I'm fascinated with this weird year of not having as much sports to go to. I'm fascinated with people getting more active or less active because it could go either way this year. What did it look like for you?
So it was kind of a little bit of both. I mean, last summer, I kind of realized I needed to focus on my health a little bit. So I started working out and going to the gym. But I hadn't really changed my diet or anything. So I lost a little bit of weight. And then we stopped going to the gym during the first part of COVID because, and we were working out with Chuck that works with me and my wife. We were all going. Once we stopped having daycare and things like that, it got much harder. And then we were like, well, it's probably not safe to be at the gym. So we stopped, and I gained quite a bit of weight back. And then it was towards the end of the summer that I went, okay, let's start doing this again. And I got real focused. I went to mostly a keto diet, and we were going out on the bikes and, being more active, but then really got back in the gym. And so for the last about 5 or 6 months, I've been really active, and I've been able, I wasn't traveling, and a lot of times I have to take people to dinner and stuff. So you're like, let's order the best thing on the menu. So I was really strict with it, and it's paid off, and I've seen some results, which has been nice.
What's your results?
So this morning I hit 50 pounds that I had lost since the end of August.
50. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you just kind of got tired of letting the lockdown get the best of you. I mean, I felt that too. A lot of people have. And there was a point in time where you just said, okay, enough's enough. Let's get back out there and figure it out. And was it an equal amount of change in diet and change in movement, or was it mostly the diet that did it?
I mean, I think it takes both.
Yeah.
One thing that helped is I got a smoker. So I got a Traeger and started doing some pellet smoking, and so that helped with the keto. Obviously, eating meat, as long as it's something that again, it's like competing. I get to prep for it. I get to think about it. I get to make plans, and then I get to see it come to fruition.
The process,
and I get to, I get to consume it and feel like it's something that came from me a little bit. So that helped a lot. And then. But we've been lifting pretty heavily for the last couple of months, and so it's been fun. I've been tracking everything. I see my muscle increasing, and then I can see my body fat going down. So, but I was just it was a mood thing. I wanted more endorphins. I wanted to be happier. I didn't want to be tired every time I had to get out and do something. And it's changed everything. I mean, I think it's changed my relationship with my wife and my kids, and I can do a lot more, although it's kind of hard right now going to the gym after work and not getting home till it's dark. But but it's worth it because it's helping.
Yeah, I know. I feel you. And I agree with you with the weights. I'd put off and sort of resisted that whole, being somebody who lifts weights for so long. And so many females do. But John over at Conquer Fitness in the last couple years taught me how. And that's when I would see different results. I did a lot of other things, but until I actually just started using, I'm talking 8, 10, 12 pound weights. It's not like I'm doing a lot. I had to work up to bench pressing with some weights on the bar.
Sure.
I'm not a strong person, but that's when the body fat comes off.
Yeah, and it's because you're tearing those muscles up a little bit, and your body's recovering from that. It's not just cardio where you burn what you burn while you're doing it. You're kind of burning the whole time. But I understand it because it's even growing up being an athlete, I never really learned how to really lift weights.
Me neither.
And my wife definitely didn't. My wife was not an athlete in high school. But Chuck is a coach. He coaches basketball, and he was a college athlete, a pro athlete. So he was able to kind of show us, you don't just have to go in and pick up this machine or do what, he kind of showed us how to build plans. And so now I can go to the gym and I can make a plan. When my wife goes, we have to go separately because we still don't have, place, daycare and all of that stuff. But I can kind of say, well, here, let's hit, back and buys today, and here's 3 and 3 that we can do. And so, but it was funny. We were working out with somebody yesterday, me and Chuck were, and I was telling her, he kept saying, are you breathing? Are you breathing? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you know what he's saying? He's not saying like, are you saying,
alive?
He's like, whenever you're pushing the weight up, you should be exhaling. I was like, I had to learn that.
Me too.
And he was like, and Chuck was like, oh, I didn't think to teach her that, and so she was like, oh, that does make sense.
But you're right. Like in with his path, he was taught that at some point. But you said your wife wasn't. I was an athlete in high school, but my high school was not. They were not teaching us that. I think they were probably teaching the football boys how to be in the weight room.
But see, all we did in football, I did squats, bench press, and like some leg press. That's all we had. We had a very rudimentary gym too, so I didn't know how to. I walk into a gym and I'm intimidated. There's 100 pieces of machines in here.
Me too. And I don't even think we stepped foot in a weight room, girls in high school. But that was, I was a cheerleader, but like softball, they're not going to take soccer. We just didn't do that back then. But now everybody in high school, I think Frisco, every athlete gets weight room every other day.
Yeah, these kids
and off season and all summer. And like my daughter started learning how to lift weights or be in a weight room safely and all that in 7th grade.
Sure.
And so I'm like, this is sweet. Like she has a really good foundation of how to safely be in a weight room. And so now if she wants to go work out with me, I'm like, okay, great. I don't have to babysit you. Like I know you know how to use the equipment, and somebody's taught you. She probably knows more than I do about it.
I think that's kind of why I gravitated towards Frisco a little bit, is because it was just sports was part of the culture.
Yeah.
It's everywhere I've been before, it's like we like sports, but here it's like these kids are coming out and they're getting top level coaching. They have everything kind of in front of them. If you want to go and be a pro soccer player, you have access to that right here.
100%.
And that's why, I was in Fort Worth before and I loved being over on the west side of the Metroplex. But I was like, man, for sports, there's not a better place than Frisco.
I agree. Okay, that's a good ending. So my question to end this podcast, when life is back to normal, I want to have you back and let's look at all the stuff that Visit Frisco does to bring more sports here and to amplify the sports that happen here. We'll have to talk about that another time. But what are you most looking forward to when things are back to normal, experiencing sports in Frisco?
I'm looking forward to crowds, honestly. The thing that I think we need, whether it's through the vaccine or whatever, is confidence. We need confidence that we can safely go and do these things. I know what the protocols are at each place. I think we have very smart sports operators here. So the events that we are doing are safe, but I think the general public is just very unsure of their own safety. So whenever everyone kind of feels confident again that they can get out there and you can go and you can stand next to someone that you don't know and scream at the top of your lungs and high five somebody that you've never met, that is what I'm looking forward to the most, is just that sense of community of being in the same building and cheering for people you may have never met, but we're all rowing the boat in the same direction.
I love that. What is your favorite event in Frisco?
Ooh.
In a perfect year, when everything happens.
In a perfect year. That's hard. That's like having to pick like your favorite child.
They're your babies, I'm sure.
I really like any of the events that are kind of that long prep time. So with the FCS championship that we run, that we start prepping for that usually in August.
Oh.
And we have meetings, sometimes bi-weekly, and then closer in we're having, weekly and daily meetings about that. I like events that I have to be at. Lone Star Conference basketball is one. It's a smaller tournament, but I'm there and I'm involved in every aspect of the event. So at the end of it, I'm exhausted, but it's that exhausted that I love.
Yeah.
Like, I just competed is how I feel.
Yeah.
And so, my favorite event, it's probably FCS is probably way up there just because it's on national TV. It's great, but we've got...
And it's that football feel and all that good stuff, and Toyota Stadium, and checks a lot of boxes.
Well, we get to work with all the great partners we have here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you about that in a future episode when we can explore all of the things. We're going to run down a list so long of what's coming back to Frisco, people won't even believe it, right?
Yeah, we're already starting to make that list. We've got some really cool stuff in the pipeline. So.
Good. Well, here's to that. I'm excited to have that back. Thank you. I know you are busy, so thanks for coming in and chatting with us and giving us a peek into your sports background.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this. I think it's important to have somebody talking about all the great sports stuff that's happening in Frisco. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, thanks. We're here every week talking about youth players, pro players, coaches, organizers, entrepreneurs, whatever it is. If they want to talk to me about sports, I'll talk to them. So we love doing that. So thank you for listening to this episode of Hustle and Pro. Remember to subscribe however you listen to your podcast. And do me a favor, hit that review on iTunes and tell us how you're liking us. We'll see you next week.